Hi, my name is Lauren Kruger-Patchin, and today I'm going to talk about my thesis statement and my main arguments for my paper. I started off with a research question asking how can organizations converge successfully and what are the benefits. I narrowed it down more to argue news organizations must overcome the challenges of convergence in order to work together to provide a wider range of news coverage with better quality content. I have main arguments, and as you'll see written out would be my references that back this up. Before I start my arguments, I want to define media. For my purpose, media will be newspapers and television. I also want to define convergence. Convergence is evolving, and it means different things to different people. My reference, Daily, Demo, and Spillman says, the definition of convergence is evolving within a media landscape where competing newspapers and television stations form alliances to meet a variety of technological, editorial, regulatory, and market-based opportunities and challenges. My first argument would be that TV and print need to converge. If we look at newspapers, they have the skills to produce a print newspaper, but many of their staff are not trained for the digital world. They're starting to produce video content for their websites, but they're not necessarily trained to do that. So it's a learning process for them, and a lot of people resist that, but we'll get to that part later. Right now I want to focus on the fact that newspaper staffs have to learn how to have that online presence and create video content. When we look at television stations, they're great with the video, and they make a TV show. And they may have some writing, script writing, but they're not necessarily trained for that long story writing that they might want to put on the web. If newspapers and television came together and combined their strengths and their skills, they would have a wider range for coverage and better quality coverage. My second argument would be that there are challenges to overcome to get a print outlet and a broadcasting outlet to converge, but there are ways to overcome them. Some would argue that the challenges would include traditional workers resisting the change, that it's difficult to get the management to come together, and that the physical setup of a newsroom may not be made for convergence. It's also difficult to find a model that would work for everyone. So how do we overcome this? We look at the past. We look at those who have tried convergence. We see where they succeeded, and we see where they failed. We find something new to try where they failed. My reference with the author Dupang looks at a Florida station that did try convergence. They were one of the first, and they failed. But they talked to the journalists who worked there at the time, and we hear where they think it went wrong, and that will allow us to not make the same mistakes. My third argument would be that many media outlets are at that partnering stage already. They're ready for convergence. They just need to know how to do it successfully. Daily, Demo, and Spillman argue that they're ready for this. My reference with the author Moses includes a media outlet that has successfully converged, and it still exists today. There are examples of successful convergence. We just need to talk to them and find out how they're being so successful. My fourth and last argument is that there is a future for convergence. Although many have failed in the past, it is still evolving. People are learning from those mistakes and trying new things. Some are successful. It's clear that educators believe convergence will work in the future. They're teaching it right now, and many of those who are teaching it find that students are less resistant to the change and to learn convergence than the faculty are. That older age group doesn't have that same open mind and enthusiasm as the younger age group when it comes to training for convergence. They tend to be stuck in their ways of the traditional media. As soon as that younger age group who's trained for convergence enters the career field, we're going to see a lot more of convergence, and we're going to see it becoming more successful. Why is this? Let's take a look at the theories I could use to make these arguments. The first theory, diffusion of innovations. It's the adoption of new ideas, in this case the adoption of convergence. Opinion leaders play a big role in diffusion of innovations. These opinion leaders are the ones that go out and they talk to their friends and they make this idea sound great, and then more and more people want to adopt it. I think the younger journalists could be those opinion leaders going into the news stations and convincing the older journalists that it's a good idea. I also think that if big media outlets adopt the idea of convergence, the smaller ones are going to fall into place. And then of course we have convergence theory, which states that as societies become increasingly industrialized, they begin to resemble other industrialized societies. So as these other media outlets start converging, the ones that haven't tried it yet, they're going to start converging to keep up with everyone else. They want to be like the others. So again, my main argument, my thesis, would be that news organizations must overcome the challenges of convergence in order to work together to produce a wider range of news coverage with better quality content.